More about what happened yesterday. Let's go to Mike Fairborn in the WCCO4 weather station. Mike, how unusual are twisters in March?
Well, for Minnesota, it is unusual for sure, Amelia. You know, we're so used to, in our weather center, looking at satellite pictures and radar, absolutely amazed at the destruction on the ground from looking at those photos today. But, you know, March has tornadoes, that's for sure. We went back and looked, and all the way from 1968, 91, 53, 81. The amazing thing about this list of tornadoes that we've had in March before is that many of them occurred, again, across southern Minnesota, which would indicate that you've got to get that warmth begin to build up before it really begins to move into us. Now, we do have a radar picture that we captured from last night. It's a Doppler image, and it's a little bit tricky to see, but what I want to point out to you is this little area right down here. We call it a couplet. It's where we can see winds moving toward the radar and away from the radar, and this was just as that tornado was kind of dying down over southern Dakota County after it had already moved across much of southern Minnesota. How strong was the tornado? Well, on the Fujita scale, this is what we usually look at. A weak tornado is an F0, probably somewhere in it between an F3 and an F5, perhaps an F3 or an F4, but look at the winds inside of tornadoes of that category, 158 to 260 miles an hour, certainly capable of producing the damage that we saw on the ground. We'll have a full weather update for you in a couple of minutes.
Okay, Mike, we'll see you then. State emergency leaders swung into action almost immediately when the tornadoes hit, and by this morning, state lawmakers were moving rapidly to send relief. WCCO's Pat Kessler continues our team coverage with that part of the story.
Just 18 hours after tornadoes struck southern Minnesota, a Senate committee was already acting, approving up to $10 million in emergency aid.
One of the things we've learned, especially from the floods last year, is that a quick response not only gives financial help, it gives hope to people at times of devastation.
We need to send some generators.
People are being sheltered.
The state's emergency management teams began evaluating damage in their Capital Command Center and coordinating relief efforts in the field. With hundreds of homes damaged or destroyed, state officials anticipate long-term housing problems across southern Minnesota.
These are small communities that I would be quite confident do not have an overabundance of housing stock as is. And when you're talking about destroying a high percentage of all the homes in some of these smaller communities, finding long-term residences for those folks is going to be difficult.
If there is such a thing as good news to come out of a tragedy like this, it is that lawmakers are in session. There's a huge surplus, and they're eager to act as quickly as possible. In St. Paul, Pat Kessler, WCCO4 News.
Now, if you want to help storm victims, here are the numbers to call. The Red Cross is at 1-800-HELP-NOW or the Salvation Army at 612-566-2040. But what they really need more than anything are donations of money. And the Lower Sioux community is stepping forward to help its neighbors in southern Minnesota. Tribal leaders are donating $10,000 to 3 communities hit hardest by the twisters. The spring twisters didn't just hit the towns. Coming up next, we'll show you the path of destruction it left on farms. Stay with us as our 1-hour-long special on the twisters continues.
Foods, even throwing away what had come off the lines just the week before the storm hit. Insurance never covers everything, so the bottom line will have to take care of that. The 4 companies with the most damage in La Center employ about 400 people, and it's still too early to tell if jobs will be cut. But serious losses in profits could mean some tough times down the road for the La Center businesses. And again, we have our news crews out today checking the cleanup.
Storms and cleanup efforts. We'll take you to tell you about a group of Gustavus students who were on tour when the storm hit. Plus, we'll take you to La Center and show you how the community is coming together to help residents clean up and repair the damage from last weekend's storms. But we begin in Comfrey, where authorities just discovered the path of the storm was 30 miles longer than they originally thought. That's where Carol Evans' Alan Costantini standing by with the very latest on today's developments. Alan?
Well, Rick, this is choice time for Comfrey, and the choice is life or death for the town. It looks like they're choosing life. Businesses and residents say they're going to rebuild, and many say that the governor's promise to rebuild the school is a big factor.
One of the biggest things. I come from a small community of Wells, and small communities still have the better education, I feel.
It was one of the smallest schools in the state, just 200 students in 12 grades. But Comfrey wants its school back. It's a big part of the soul of this town of 400 that has endured so much this week.
Just watch the whole house move away. It's like a piece of paper.
Your house just moved right back?
Yep.
Right off the foundation and
Right
just
off,
dropped?
yep. The corner is supposed to be up here.
Matt Rucker and Janet Tierney and her 2 children felt the terrible tug of the tornado as it shoved their house of 4 months 6 feet off its foundation.
A plywood board came across our heads, and we just stayed under that plywood board until it was all over with.
I was scared and my ears were popping, and I was kind of knocked out though.
So much of Comfrey has been knocked out. The twin spires of Faith Lutheran Church were blasted from the roof. One was impaled upside down in the parsonage lawn. The pastor's wife had just parked where they fell.
Whatever length of time it took to run down the steps, then we heard the things come down around us out here. And her car was completely crushed flat by the bricks of the steeple.
A different kind of destruction is visiting Comfrey now. The town says it will rebuild, but Comfrey may have lost one of its comforts. Kelsey's Bar, the only tavern in town, is rubble and may not return. Owner Tony Brixius has been trying to sell Kelsey's, but to watch it go this way hurts somewhere deep.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be, but it's been kind of a meeting place for everybody in town since I bought it. And it's, you know, it's no place for the friends to go anymore.
Tony says he's always wanted to live in the mountains, and there aren't a lot of mountains in Comfrey. But he says he's going to wait until he sees what kind of government programs are available before he makes the final choice, for him at least, for Kelsey's. And hundreds of other Comfreyans are in the same boat, and many of those were inside St. Paul's Catholic Church here in Comfrey this afternoon, trying to find out about those government programs and making their own choices. And we're going to have more on that for you tonight at 6. Pat, Rick?
And Alan, in the meantime, where will the kids go to school?
Well, actually, the school is just pretty much destroyed, as you can see, Pat. And they have rented space in the Sanborn School District, about 15 minutes from here, and that's where they're going to go to school starting, I think, April 13th.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
You bet.
In Lee Center today, hundreds of students joined forces to help clean up their community, and as KARE 11's Mark Daly discovered, their efforts were greatly appreciated by at least one family in the area.
Teenagers may not always be eager to do their chores.
I need to get off my butt sometimes and do stuff around the house.
200 or so student volunteers from Lee Center and LeSueur, however, well, they did so much heavy lifting today, they made the mules look bad.
A lot of people, you know, complain about the kids being worthless, or they don't work, or they're mouthy or whatever, but I don't see it here.
Skipping school was a nice bonus, of course, but the students seemed sincere when they said that wasn't the real reason they're here.
It makes me proud because I'm helping all these people, and that I'm doing my best.
And even though they missed class, a lot of learning still went on.
How lucky I am. That people working together can get a lot done, I suppose.
As for those on the receiving end of all this goodwill, well, they certainly appreciated it.
They're getting dirty, their feet are wet, you know, a lot of them didn't come prepared for the mud and everything else, and they're just hanging in there doing a good job.
Hanging in there, doing a good job. Now, if only they'd clean their rooms. In Lee Center, Mark Daly, KARE 11 News.
Dozens of student volunteers worked in small groups all over Lee Center today, but most helped just outside of town where the damage is considered to be the worst. One group of students decided not, though, to drop everything and help with the cleanup effort.
Instead, their motto was, "The show must go on." The Gustavus Adolphus College Orchestra performed yesterday in St. Louis. The musicians were on a 9-day tour when the superstorm hit, and they wrestled with what they should do.
We were in Iowa. We weren't that far away. We're like, we just want to go back and help clean up. But our conductor and our tour manager wanted us to finish the tour to kind of set an example to show that, you know, we could keep going.
At each performance, an audience collection is taken up to help defray the musicians' expenses, but the students have decided to donate that money to the cleanup effort. Well, there are ways you can help too, but at this point, money is still what is needed the most. The City of Comfrey is accepting donations. You can send your contribution to the People's State Bank, P.O. Box 98, Comfrey, 56019. You can also give money to the Red Cross. The number there, 1-800-HELP-NOW. Or you can call the Salvation Army at 612-569-0541. Now, if you prefer to volunteer, you can call Nicollet County at 507-931-6800. And here's another way you can help the storm survivors. We've put together a half-hour tape on the tornadoes of March of '98. It costs $8.95, which includes shipping and handling, and all proceeds will go to the tornado relief efforts in southern Minnesota. To order a tape, just call 1-800-690-INFO.
An early morning robbery at a car wash in Little Canada left a police dog injured and developed into a 6-hour manhunt. Sheriff's deputies responded
in just 13 weeks. Of course, it didn't take President Clinton long to step out of the White House with that kind of news today. He wanted
into a nearby woods with
shampoos and soap. General Mills employees collected and donated more than 50,000 pounds of the company's products today. We have a team of reporters still covering the twisters, beginning with WCCO's Mike Walsher leading the coverage in St. Paul. Or in St. Peter, rather. I'm sorry. Mike?
That's right, Don. I can tell you the spirit of the people here in St. Peter is strong and vibrant. Same goes for the good folks in Comfrey who are vowing to rebuild that town this evening. The damage here will run into many tens of millions, but they're making great progress, as you can see from the volunteers, the hard-working people across the street here, clearing out debris in some of the worst damaged area in St. Peter, and crews have also been in town restoring power. James Lee Witt, the director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, toured both St. Peter and Comfrey. He told us he had rarely seen such massive tornado destruction. He said it's very fortunate only 2 people died. He said homeowners, farmers, and business people can get help by calling 1-800-462-9029 to tap into federal assistance programs.
But people will go through a period of shock, and they'll go through a period of frustration, and then they just get really mad, you know. And our job is to try to keep that frustration down and try to work with the community and the state and make sure those people have an opportunity to get in and get the help they may need, whether it's counseling or whatever it is. But it's almost like a bomb gone off.
I tell you, it's very gratifying. There are so many volunteers flooding into the tornado-ravaged communities. Among the hardest working are students from area high schools. Hundreds of them are getting valuable lessons, not in the classroom, but out in the field, clearing debris. And our team coverage continues this evening with Bill Hudson, who caught up with some of those students near the center.
Pulling timbers from a muddy field or picking insulation strewn across the landscape aren't taught in the classrooms, but they're lessons in civic involvement high school students are learning well.
These people look like they need a lot of help, and we figured, you know, my house personally didn't get hurt or anything, but I felt I needed to help my community.
It didn't matter the way it came down and picked it up, and we actually...
People like Linda and Kim Cunningham are in need of that help after losing everything they own. So today, out of the blue, a group of LeSueur High School kids picked up acres of debris.
Couldn't have done it without them and all the other people in our town and other little towns that I can't tell you what it means to us.
For many tornado victims, rebuilding as soon as possible is critical. The owner of this business in Lonsdale, for instance, was just 2 weeks away from selling his shop. He says he's got about that much time to get a new building up. Rebuilding has already begun on this lumber yard, and thanks to so many volunteers, the Cunninghams won't be far behind.
Just want to say thank you to the town of Lee Center and all the little towns around us that are taking care of us and sending help to clean all this up. Thank you. It means more to us than you'll ever know.
In Lee Center, Bill Hudson, WCCO 4 News.
And if you would like to volunteer, and I know many of you do, the hotline number to call is 1-800-657-3504. Also in St. Peter, the Kind Veterinary Clinic is putting out the word it is sheltering lost and stray animals. You can bring strays here or come to try to locate a lost pet. The clinic also is giving out free cat and dog food to storm victims who need those items, and it will board any animals whose owners' homes are not livable. One other note, the state's $28 million emergency aid package goes before the legislature next week. And Don, it'll be a really big weekend here in St. Peter. They're expecting up to 5,000 volunteers here tomorrow. That's half the town's population. They're going to bring them in 3 different shifts to clear debris. And then, of course, on Sunday, everyone here will take some time to pause and mark the 1-week anniversary of these devastating tornadoes. Back to you.
All right, Mike, thank you very much. The St. Paul insurance companies expect to lose a lot of money because of these tornadoes. The St. Paul company says it expects to take a $15 to $20 million pre-tax loss. The St. Paul companies insured Gustavus Adolphus College, where lots of buildings were damaged. People who live in the disaster areas are getting an extension on filing their state and federal income taxes, much like they did up in the Red River Valley. They have until October 15th now to file. You can count on WCCO4 News for our continuing coverage on the Spring Twisters tonight at 10 and throughout the weekend.
Well, baseball fans are pretty excited. In about an hour, the Minnesota Twins play their season home opener at the Metrodome. But will it be their last season there? WCCO's Ralph John Fritz is live outside the Dome where the fans are starting to gather. RJ?
That's right, Amelia. The fans are here. They're ready to go. And, you know, earlier today, the owners of the Metrodome said they're going to sue the Minnesota Twins, saying they don't think they can get out of their Metrodome lease. Well, of course, one judge has already said they can, so we'll have to see now how the new lawsuit goes. But things just keep rolling along in that order. Well, many fans are, of course, as we said, hoping that tonight's game will not be the last home opener for the Minnesota Twins, and hoping that some miracle will stand in the way of them moving to the Carolinas.
Yeah, it's going to be a shame, too, because they bring a lot of money into the town, and it's something that I'd like my nephews to be able to enjoy, and people just don't seem to get it.
Very good. These may be the last home opener burgers, huh?
I certainly hope not. I'm with the meat company that sells the burgers, so.
Well, that's going to hurt you, isn't it?
4 years of doing this job. We can't get through town. We're not letting anything go through. There's houses down, trees down, tops of buildings off. The courthouse, half the top is gone off of that. It's a mess.
At 4:45, it moved right through the town of Comfrey.
You okay? All this smells good. Upstairs is clear.
It's quite devastating to look at it. I'm hoping, you know, we can rebuild. Our downtown is in very bad disrepair.
Oh my God.
Sunday afternoon brought mayhem to St. Peter.
You see the clouds turning and turning, and pretty soon you can see it coming down.
At least one funnel cloud hopped, skipped, and tore its way through the town of 10,000.
You could just see the black clouds swirling, and then all of a sudden you could hear the roar of the train.
Only part of Mary Finisgard's home is still standing.
I used to have a porch there in the roof, and it was just all sided. Yeah.
Her neighborhood is an intersection of disaster.
We don't get many down here in the valley. And I always said if we ever got one down here, it was going to be bad. And it is.
Anybody here?
Police go door to door looking for survivors.
What about this house? No, they don't know yet. They don't know yet? That's his car. They must have cleaned him up. Do you think he's in there? You okay?
And as darkness quickly fell, people gathered what they could.
Odie and Mouse.
Tonight, they counted their blessings.
Thank God they've got the warning systems now, because we were all down there safe and sound.
And wondered what's next.
I guess tomorrow will tell. It's tough. We've been here 20 years.
All you can do is go in there and get the medical supplies, clothing.
We'll get to you.
And if the house is safe.
Okay.
If the loss of their houses wasn't bad enough, this morning the residents of Comfrey found themselves shut out of their own town.
Hey, don't we get to go in?
This is what Leon Hillesheim and the others left behind when they were ordered out of Comfrey last night. A main street that looked like a bomb had been dropped. The corner bar, the drugstore, the fire department, and the steeple that once stood high atop Faith Lutheran Church, now speared in the ground, top down, on the front lawn.
You waving him around me.
Leon and the others wanted in badly.
There's enough mass confusion.
I know there is.
You're trying to cause more.
I'm not.
But it would have to be on the terms of their elected officials.
Clothing and medication is what they're basically talking about, and that's all. And they want you out within an hour.
My brother from Maple Grove was talking to them on the phone when the sirens went off.
Diane Deutsch drove down from the Twin Cities to help her parents collect a few belongings.
He's 87 and Mom's 80. And they've been on their farm for all their life, and we just moved them here 7 months ago.
It was terrible.
Art Kratz and his wife Ann rode out the storm in their apartment, but lost nearly everything.
That grandfather's clock up there my brother made for my dad, Mom, out of the walnut wood from their farm.
These are the things that will be hardest to replace,
It was our 80th birthday last week.
something with which Comfrey is still coming to grips.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all right, Dad. We'll get you a nice place again. Okay.
And I seen it coming, and my nephew was with me, and we were buckled in, and I just grabbed his hand, and I said, we got to start praying.
Dave Harry and his 13-year-old nephew were driving home when suddenly they were caught in the tornado, and their vehicle began rolling over and over.
It just flipped me and rolled me this way, and it landed back on its wheels, luckily, and I kicked the door open again, and then we I ended up over here, and 2x4s were just hitting me in the head, and that little tree right there, I ended up crawling behind that. My nephew was right over there, about 20 yards away, and I got him over to the tree and just huddled over him, held onto the tree.
Harry, who was covered with bruises and scrapes, hobbled to the tree that he clung to for dear life.
I mean, that's the little tree saved our life. I was holding on, and he came over, and I just laid over the top of him.
And they had an Explorer sitting here and an S10 pickup, and the S10 pickup's right over against the trees, and we figured the Explorer went through the corner of Hunt's house there and ended up right behind their house.
Ty Brown is certainly thankful he wasn't in one of his vehicles when they were catapulted some 200 yards across the street and behind a neighbor's house. Brown had run to the basement.
And I just got to the bottom when I was in the front there, and I looked up, and the eaves were going, and then that soffit started leaving, and I knew we were in trouble then, and it sounded like 8 freight trains running over the house.
Not anything I want.
I know, honey, but I'm just saying, let's...
Okay. Oh, one earring that you gave me. Oh, there it is. Here. What? Oh my God.
You're picking it.
I told you I needed to find it.
You got it.
On the campus at Gustavus Adolphus, the good King Gustav himself lies face down in the mud. Perhaps it's just as well. Truth is, there's not much here he'd want to see. Not a scene left unmarred by this storm. And despite the best of intentions, laborers here know there will be no quick fixes. All the money in the world cannot put this place back together again.
How big of a job is this?
I couldn't begin to guess. Couldn't begin.
Reality is, this is how you fix these problems, even with the tens of millions of dollars that'll be spent here. You pick up the pieces one at a time. Engineers are left with flashlights in the dark.
It's overwhelming, really. You know, when we came down, we didn't expect this amount of damage, so it's hard to, it's just so extensive. We're just trying to get a handle on it right now.
There is hope in the destruction, unique symbols in this unique place, rising from the wreckage everywhere, promising happier times again.
It's okay. It's okay. All right, Dad. We'll get you a nice place again.